Welcome back to Logan's Voice. I'm Doug Ballinger and I'm Logan's dad. Today, I want to have a hard conversation about the numbers we hear in the news, overdose statistics, charts, graphs, because behind every single one of those numbers is a person, a son, a daughter, a brother, or a sister. My son Logan is one of those numbers. And here's the thing. Numbers can tell us the scale of the crisis, but they never tell the full truth. They can even mislead us if we don't look closely. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We'll talk about what the statistics really show, what they hide, and why we cannot let ourselves get distracted by headlines that suggest things are getting better. Because the truth is, there's still a crisis, and new toxic drugs are making it worse. If you follow the news, you've probably heard this headline: Over 100,000 Americans died of an overdose in a single year. That's the figure we've seen year after year. And for 2023, the number was about 110,000 deaths. Let that sink in. That's like wiping out an entire small city in just 12 months. And here's where it gets tricky. Provisional data for 2024 shows that the total dropped to about 80,391 deaths. That's a decline of almost 27% compared to 2023. On paper, that sounds like good news. And yes, fewer deaths is always something to be thankful for. But let me be clear, 80,000 deaths in 1 year is still a catastrophic crisis. That's 80,000 families grieving, 80,000 names spoken at vigils, 80,000 empty chairs at the dinner table. And here's what those numbers don't capture: the drugs that are emerging right now aren't even fully accounted for. Substances like xylazine and carfentanil aren't consistently tested for in toxicology screens. So those deaths may not even show up in the official totals. So while the numbers may look like they're moving down, the reality on the ground is more complicated and more dangerous than that. Let's dig a little deeper. First, toxicology reports don't always capture the full picture. If fentanyl is present, it often gets listed as the cause, even if meth, cocaine, alcohol, or xylazine were involved. That oversimplifies what really happened. Second, the official reports are almost always behind. By the time the CDC finalizes and releases its yearly totals, those deaths already happened a year earlier. Families are living the nightmare in real time while the world waits for the numbers to catch up. And third, the statistics don't capture the ripple effects. They don't measure the little sister who lost her brother, the mother who can't sleep at night, the child growing up without a parent. The devastation multiplies far beyond what the data shows. So the next time you hear a headline about overdose deaths going down, remember, it doesn't mean this crisis is over. It doesn't mean your community is safe, and it doesn't mean new poisons aren't waiting in the supply. So who's being hit hardest? The data gives us some clues. In 2023, overdose rates went down for some young and middle-aged groups, ages 15 to 54. But for adults 55 and older, the rates actually increased. That tells us the crisis isn't just about young people, it's catching older adults too. Men are still dying at higher rates than women, but women are catching up, especially mothers trying to juggle impossible loads without support. Rural communities are deeply impacted. Treatment options are limited. Harm reduction services are scarce, and stigma is often stronger in small towns. Families are left isolated and ashamed. Imagine if you had a substance use disorder in a small town and you wanted to go see a counselor, Do you think everybody would notice that your car was parked out in front of that one counselor who handles substance use disorder? That stigma will keep most people from going. And one of the most dangerous realities, it's rarely just one drug. In 2023, in many jurisdictions, nearly 47% of overdose deaths involve both opioids and stimulants. Fentanyl combined with meth or cocaine is becoming the norm, not the exception. And remember, synthetic opioids, mostly fentanyl, were involved in roughly 3/4 of all overdose deaths in 2023. That dominance hasn't gone away. So while the totals dipped in 2024, the risk factors are still everywhere. Pills pressed with fentanyl, street heroin laced with xylazine, cocaine cut with carfentanil, and something new that's emerging, nitazines. We're living in a poison drug supply, and the data is always a step or two behind. Now I want to pause because while data points and percentages matter, they can never capture the real loss. When I stand at events like Bridge the Gap, I don't see numbers, I hear the names: Logan, Hagen, Christopher, Taylor, Brandon, and so many more. Reading those names out loud reminds us this isn't about 80,000 deaths. It's about one life at a time, loved and missed. Logan wasn't a statistic. He was my son. He was full of curiosity, humor, and heart. And every person lost to this crisis was just as real, just as loved, just as worthy of being remembered. That's why we cannot let ourselves be lulled into a false sense of progress just because the numbers show a dip. Behind every number is a name, and behind every name is a story worth telling. So here's what I want you to take away today. Yes, provisional 2024 numbers show a decline, but a crisis that's still taking 80,000 lives in 1 year is still a crisis, especially when new toxic drugs aren't even being counted yet. The numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth either. That's up to us. It's up to us to keep saying their names, to remind the world that behind the charts and graphs are real people, real families, real grief. To fight stigma, demand change, and keep warning others about the poison drug supply. Before you go, I want to ask a small favor that makes a huge difference. If this episode spoke to you, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That simple action helps push the message out further and helps us beat that algorithm. And if you'd like to learn more, visit logansvoice.org. There you can find our resource guide filled with tools, support, and information that can help save lives and bring comfort to families walking this path. Together, we can make sure that these voices are never silenced. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Logan's Voice. Until next time, remember, behind every number is a name, and those names matter. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent.